dLive, which you're going to see today, has been launched. So you're about the first people to see someone from the factory showing you the latest and the greatest features in our very new flagship system. So I'm here today mainly to show you that, but of course I can talk to you about the other mixers as well. In the same room here we have the other digital products, which are part of a family and all have some really cool features, so we can go through those as well. But I've got a presentation here which can take you through some of the history and some of the features which are leading towards where we are today with this new technology. One of the things I did think I should mention pretty early on is I've been to India a few times, as Neeraj said, and we do seem to have quite a variation in different types of mains connectors and standards of connection. And I think it's really important because I do a lot of touring. I've done touring sound engineer for 30 years now in all sorts of conditions. And generally speaking, the gear will behave itself pretty good. But if you don't have the right type of mains connections, then it's basically game over. So I think it's really just a very important tip. I can't tell you enough how important it is to use earthed main supplies when you're using this digital equipment, because invariably the power supplies on the digital mixers are switch mode power supplies. They generate a lot of radio frequencies, and the systems are designed to work with an earthed power supply, which means the chassis, the metal case of the mixer is grounded and stopping some of this RF noise from appearing, and also lots and lots of high voltages inside, so the systems can become unstable and even dangerous if you don't have an earth. So we would always insist, and in fact the user guide, if you look at the user guide for any Allen Heath mixer, says please use an earth supply. So an earth supply has 3 connections. The central one, or the outside 2 on that one there on the right, is the earth. And you can check this with a meter. It's a cheap meter, costs a few dollars, and you can check if the earth has good connections and you get full potential between the live and the earth, then you know you have a good earth reference. So it's very important if you want to maintain your reputation and the gear to work as it should do, to use an earth supply. Another thing which I found to be extremely popular, I'm sure you have them here, but now even small mixers like the Q mixer, guys are taking them out on conferences, into theaters, doing live events, all sorts of situations, and they use a UPS, an uninterrupted power supply, which means it's charging up, it has a small battery inside. That way, if there's a dip in the mains or there's a break in the supply, the mixer doesn't go off, which means it doesn't have to reboot. Digital technology is not quite as robust in terms of picking up where it left off sometimes. So it's always a good idea to use a UPS, and it just keeps everything stable, keeps you more professional. Of course, our equipment can work from anywhere voltage-wise, from 90 volts up to 240 volts with the UPS supply. So that means you have a good variation. It can stand the mains going down and up, but it's the interruption. It's when power goes off and things have to reboot. It just puts stress on your system. So look into using UPS power supplies. So that's the lesson over. I just think it's very important. I say everywhere I go, make sure you look after the main supply. Okay, we're going to have a quick look now at where Allen Heath has been for the last few years. It started off in London, and basically we did lots of mixers in the early days for bands like Pink Floyd. We did the first quadraphonic mixer, 4-channel mixer. We have a long association with recording. You can see the Sync-On console. A&H Factory moves into mass production. We did the first automated MIDI computer, and then we moved on to matrix mixing and DSP control, and the first digital mixer there in 1998 is called the Icon. So we've been doing digital mixing for quite some time. These digital mixers then went into newer formats, matrix mixing, PC-controlled mixing with remote controllers, with the IDR series. And then from this early kind of new generation of mixers with computer controls, we've come up with live mixing systems like the iLive, the GLD, and the Q. So we have an evolution starting at 1998 of 1996 even of digital mixing. So we've been in the game a long time, and we've always done very sort of cost-effective, real-world solutions. So 45 years of analog mixing, you can see there, an average 50,000 mixers every year from 2011. That's shifting some mixers. So all over the planet, Alan Heath is a very, very familiar face in the world of mixing. And in 20 years of digital mixing now, you can see we've done 35,000 digital mixers around the globe. So an incredible journey. And it's able to us to get to this point where we're about to launch a very, very exciting, well, it's launched, but reveal and use a very, very exciting product. And it's been a really good journey. The company's a great company to work for. I go around the world and we get a lot of respect, certainly about sound quality and value for money. An important development in the last couple of years is that the company has been acquired by a parent company called Audiotonics. No one's heard of Audiotonics. I've never heard of it. It's been created to look after Allen and Heath. The same company also bought two other very, very important mixer manufacturers. Calrec in the north of England, who concentrates on very high-end broadcast and studio mixing. Great technology, very expensive, very bespoke mixers. And Digico, which some of you may have heard of, very, very popular in the live and large-scale and broadcast markets. All those companies now are able to share information, technology. It doesn't mean that we're using each other's parts and making mixes for each other, but it does mean we can talk about optical fiber solutions, we can talk about networking, we can talk about FPGA technology for the way the processing is done inside the mixers. So this is very, very exciting for us, having this association to make this really quite powerful group of UK manufacturers. So the time that dLive is being launched and sold on the market is a time where Digico has already got its foot in the door of a lot of main riders and large-scale events, and so we're very, very proud to have the association as being part of this group. The concept of the larger digital mixers is a sort of happy family. We call it one big happy family. So what we have with the iLive system is we have ranges of DSP control racks, which is the mixing brain, the mix rack in the middle. And then with the mix rack, which is actually the mixer's not the thing where you put your hands on, the mixer is actually the brain. The mixer can be controlled by lots of different methods, such as apps, by Apple iPad, remote controls, dedicated remote controllers which have faders and rotaries and those sort of things. We can interconnect mix racks using digital multi-channel connections of different formats. We have an editor software which is available for PC or Mac, and this allows you to do online and offline editing of the mixing system. In some cases, many cases in the world, we have people just using the mixing brain by itself with no surface. They just carry a laptop and an app and they mix on that, and it's become completely okay to do that. Of course, some people like to get their hands on faders, and that's fair enough. And of course, then they can simply plug in, boot up the system, and run it as a traditional mixing surface. And we have a range of different sizes of surfaces in the iLive, which all work with the same core. So you can see there, we call it a mix and match approach. And this is something which we're very happy about. It means that all these mixers down here on the left-hand side, these are all mixing brains for the iLive. The DSP is in here. This is the mixer brain. This is also the large-scale modular iLive, and a DSP brain called the IDR0. All these things do the same job. They all mix 64 channels, 32 buses, 8 effects. And they work as standalone with an editor, or you can connect up a surface. And look at this range of surfaces here. These are the original 4 surfaces which we created for iLive. These are modular surface, very heavy duty, quite heavy, solid mixers with modules which you can change for analog or digital mic inputs and outputs. Then we did the T-series, which was a cheaper series, very, very popular. It outsold the iLive original outsold by 3 or 4 times, amazing. And these were much cheaper, but they did the same job. They had the same faders, the same touchscreen, the same LCD displays. Of course, all the processing is done inside the brain, so there's no compromise in using a cheaper surface. So this system, you could use any of these surfaces with any of the mix racks in a mix and match approach. We also do a range of interface cards, which are ACE, which allows Allen Heath equipment to be connected together. Dante, which is a third-party 64-channel, 24-bit true audio networking platform. Waves, which is a very, very popular sort of DAW and plugins environment, which can be used live and in the studio. And MADI and EtherSound, and another card called the MMO, which allows you to connect up some of our remote output boxes and ADAT. So all these kind of products can be interconnected. They use the same sort of show and library data. So if you have one show file and you're presented with a different system, you can still use it with an Allen Heath system. So that's marvelous. You don't have to have a different show file for every type of surface and every type of mix rack you're going to be working with. So the mix and match approach is something we've kept going. Also, it's important to understand that people who didn't work with the iLive, we did 9 years of free updates with an iLive system. Often people say, why should I invest in your product? How long is it going to last? What happens if it gets left on the shelf? Well, you know, history is telling us that between version 1 and version 1.9, we had a fantastic set of updates. And these were based on feedback from people like yourselves. We're very much into listening what people want to use. If you have a particular requirement in broadcast or studio, or you don't like the way something works, you can write to us. We'll listen. We have our R&D department on site. We write our own code. Everything's done in-house, so we can respond. And so we've done all these updates, including new models of effects, graphic EQs, and that sort of thing. Support for new hardware, lots and lots and lots of software updates, or firmware updates, giving the customer very good value for money and a very responsive mixer. Some of the competition, they produce really great mixers, but they're kind of fixed when you get them. That's it. They're not going to change. You may get 1 or 2 updates. We would like to say that we're very good at listening to what people want and responding. The iLive went on to do a lot of really seriously hard work. These are some of the artists that I've been working with the iLive around the world. A lot of British and American acts and all sorts of very famous people. But the thing is, it's taken us a long time to get that kind of respect and get our mixers on riders, technical riders, and being accepted at the very highest level of the artist appearing at the top festivals and top venues all around the world. So there's a list of people there that we've worked with and the engineers have worked with. So it's quite often people say to me, well, it's not as accepted, and you know, who uses it? Well, you know, have a look at our website. Those are some of the names of people around the world using Allen and Heath. So these are some of the venues and events around the world, live festivals, gigs, theatres, lots and lots of special TV live events, lots of broadcast. In Austria there, live classical music. That's the John Peel stage at Glastonbury. That guy there's the front of house engineer for Morrissey, PJ Harvey. These are world-class touring engineers and artists using the iLive all over the place. So it's been a fantastic journey, and people are very, very excited about where we're going next. I've got a little video here, which you can play, of some of the background to this. Talking about some of the DSP inside the mixers. Okay.
Possibly, for me, one of the best digital systems with its own internal effects. The effects just seem to work straight away for me. I don't know if it's something that they've been worked at, particularly to make them work live, but there's been effects I've used in the past that are very, very expensive, and you physically can't hear them during the show. They're just too posh. I'm currently running just a fairly bog standard short haul, long haul, a tap delay, and an ADT. And all of them straight away dial it in, and they brings everything to life, but without even having to EQ or take top end off or do any high pass fills or anything. They all just seem to fit straight away without having to do any doctoring. Wonderful, wonderful thing.
Put the fade up, you put some music on, it was like, this is a bit different to what I've been hearing, because so you get this bit more natural sound. It was hard to grasp it a bit. So I was like, fell in love with iLives, really. One thing I really struck me was the good, like the extreme good effects in the iLive system. I think I would say that it's the best effect simulation in digital business for like digital consoles.
Hearing the sound of different desks, the iLive certainly bears up very well. It's clean, it knits together very well, the compression is top drawer, the reverb qualities are fantastic. Not that we use that much of it in monitors in this particular band, but even so, what we do use is always excellent.
Yeah, you can see a few people there just saying how good they find the effects, and that's a fantastic thing, because Alan Heath, we didn't buy any effects from anybody. We just decided to start with digital mixers ourselves. We decided to grow our own effects. We looked at what was very popular in the world, things like Lexicon 480, the TC 6000, various Yamaha effects, and we looked at all of those and we learned how they did it. We spent as much time and money as if those manufacturers were to create a plugin. Well, we did the same thing. So we learned how to create those units in DSP. And in some cases, we think we did a better job than the originals in terms of giving you extra parameters to control and the interface to work with those effects. So the effects that were generated for iLive have since gone into the GLD mixer. There are 4 effects in even the Q mixer, which are from this family of effects, and they sound truly amazing. And it's a very, very important thing. People seem to forget that. They think all digital mixers have effects. It's a given. They all have reverb. They've all got compressors and gates. But we really do care about the way these things work and how they sound. And we've spent a lot of time and money making that happen. So iLive, not only does it sound good, are the effects good, but the reputation in the live market has increased. We've also had iLives used in lots and lots of different applications. Lots of high-end things in the world there. You might recognize a couple of guys there in front of the iLive mixer. That was at the Nobel Peace Prize in Norway, where the town hall has invested in an iLive system. So we have Alan and Heath as part of the city council PA system. Sports stadiums, venues, multi-purpose venues all around the world.